Hey guys, just wanted to shoot a quick video here to let you guys know about a new podcast that me and Zach have started up. That's Zach from Working Joe's Roundtable. A lot of you know him as Zach from Talon 875, but he's Working Joe's Roundtable now. Most of you know that I have started up a podcast, Israel HVAC, and so did Zach, and he had the Working Joe's podcast. I had the Israel HVAC podcast. Well, I did a podcast on my podcast where I interviewed Zach a few days ago, and we had so much fun doing the podcast together and talking together that we decided to go ahead and create a new podcast where we co-host it. And that podcast is called Cowboys of HVAC Podcast. We've already released one podcast. It was just kind of like it was supposed to be just a quick example and a teaser, if you will, but it ended up turning into a 30-minute podcast. But that's okay because it came out really good. So you can find all the podcast, the Israel HVAC podcast, the Working Joe's podcast, and the Cowboys of HVAC podcast. They can all be found in three places: WorkingJoesRoundtable.com. You'll see at the top, you'll see HVAC podcast. Click on it and you'll find them. They can also be found on iTunes. You can download the podcast app on your iPhone, and they can all three be found there. They can all three also be found on Google Play if you use an Android. All three of them. Now, me and Zach we'll probably still do our own podcast, here on a daily basis, short ones. But what the Cowboys of HVAC podcast is all about is about me and him co-hosting this thing together and bringing guests in. We have sponsors lined up already. We're going to be bringing these guys in. Like we've got Sporlin interested. If they jump on board, we're going to bring them in for an interview. We've got Hillmore's in. Hillmore Tools is in. We're going to bring them in. We're going to bring their marketing specialist their the guy that makes the tools or whatever, or their marketing guy. We're going to bring him in for an interview. Field Piece is in. Zach has already done an interview with the Field Piece guy, but we plan to do another one with him. So we're going to bring him in for another interview. Let me think. Testo's in. Testo has agreed to come on board. So we're going to bring somebody in from Testo and do an interview with them. And then we're going to have, even regular guests, like guys from YouTube, some of the big guys on YouTube, like Steve Lav. We want to get Steve Lav on the podcast really bad. And so that's something that we hope to do. Ralph is also part of this. And we're just going to bring people in and do stuff like that. And there's going to be shows, where we're going to pick a topic, and we're going to try to stay on topic. Sometimes it doesn't always work out like that. Sometimes you get to talking and stuff and you'll get off topic. But we definitely want to, and there's also an email address. The email address is for you guys to send an email if you want us to answer a question that you have, or if you have a suggestion for a good topic on a podcast, anything. The email is cowboysofhvac@gmail.com. Again, that's cowboysofhvac@gmail.com. You can email questions, topics, that you want us to discuss on the podcast. Now, the Cowboys of HVAC podcast, we haven't really decided. We're maybe going to do one a week or maybe two a week. We haven't decided. But these are not going to be little, 6-10 minute podcasts. These are going to probably be, 30 minutes to an hour long podcast with guests or going over topics. Because when one guy's doing a podcast, it can be difficult to go for that long. Like most of my podcasts, I think the longest one I have, my single podcast, is only like 10 minutes or something like that. Because you're by yourself. But when you get two guys together like me and Zach, and you start talking about things, it clicks, and you just go on, and that's the whole point. Is that it was such a good time the first time we did it on my podcast that we've decided to create our own podcast together. So it's going to be a good time, guys. It really is, and I really hope that all of you will subscribe to the podcast. Again, Israel HVAC podcast, Working Joe's podcast, and the Cowboys of HVAC podcast. Like I said, all three of them can be found on workingjoesroundtable.com and iTunes. Download the podcast app, and they can also be found on Google Play if you're using an Android device. So I hope you guys will check that out and stay tuned for the fun. Oh, and to answer your, I'm sure somebody's going to ask, does this mean that I'm going to stop doing YouTube videos of me working out in the field? Absolutely not. I still love doing the videos out in the field working. That is not going to stop at all. So no concerns there. But the podcast is something that me and Zach tried out and we really enjoyed, and it's a lot of fun. And I hope you guys will enjoy it too. So go to workingjoesroundtable.com, iTunes, or Google Play and subscribe to the podcast. Israel HVAC podcast, Working Joe's podcast, and the Cowboys of HVAC podcast. All right, guys, thank y'all for watching, and we'll see y'all on the next one.